Was Jesus political? This is going to be the topic of this video today, bouncing off some research I have been doing and some future research I hope to do. So let's get right into it. One of the criticisms I've been getting on my recent political posts is that Jesus was not political. We're supposed to imitate Jesus, so we shouldn't be political. Well, I want to challenge that view. In Luke chapter 4, verses 14 through 21, Jesus reads a passage from Isaiah 61, 1 through 2, and says that scripture has been fulfilled, wowing the crowd listening to him. Now, there is background to Luke 4 and Isaiah 61 that I want to give first before analyzing those passages. Leviticus 25 describes a practice known as the Jubilee year, in which debt slaves are freed, debts are canceled, and land is returned to its original owners. This was a physical act of liberation rooted in the notion that the land is God's and he lends it to Israel. The debt slavery of the Israelites followed a similar logic. Because God redeemed Israel from slavery in Egypt, he became their owner, meaning they should not become permanent slaves, despite that possibility existing. Now, that language gets picked up in Isaiah 61. Good news to the poor and freedom to captives was socioeconomic freedom and justice. Justice, biblically speaking, according to Tim Keller, is radical generosity, universal equity, life changing advocacy, and asymmetrical responsibility. Debt release was often a sign of social justice in the ancient world, and we see that here get picked up in Isaiah 61. However, Isaiah goes further to proclaim a future jubilee for the people of Israel during or after the exile. So the context of Luke 4, which is Leviticus 25 and Isaiah 61, is socioeconomic and political liberation. That was the goal, and it had a eschatological or end times bent to it, which Isaiah adds. So Jesus is the one who has the Spirit upon him to proclaim socioeconomic, physical, and prophetic deliverance for the people of Israel, according to Luke chapter 4. And Jesus actually does all of these things. And there's a lot of scholarship on this. And if you track with the Gospel of Luke, you'll actually see this very clearly. Jesus forgives sins, releases people of demons, heals physical issues, which is all part of the Jubilee language that we find in Isaiah 61, Leviticus 25, that gets picked up in Luke 4. But what about that economic freedom? Well, Jesus actually demonstrates this economic freedom in Luke chapter 19 with the temple cleansing. The temple had established a system that robbed people of their money. It was an injustice in the economic system that had been set up, which took advantage of Gentiles, especially if they were poor. I go into greater detail in my article on this, where I argue that the gospel is a liberation from all forms of oppression for all people. But the scholarship on this is pretty evident that, as one scholar notes, for the Messiah, the Jubilee and remission of debts extended to all areas of life: material, moral, social. And we can also extend that to, say, spiritual. Now, if all of that is true, then it's pretty evident that Jesus was a political person, but there's even further evidence that can demonstrate these points. Remember the taxes situation where people go up to Jesus and ask him, should we pay taxes to Caesar? Well, part of the tension there, which is a economic, social, and political tension, was also a religious tension, because the coins had Caesar as Lord on them, which was considered idolatrous and blasphemous to Jews. And so, do we pay taxes to Caesar or not? This is clearly a political, social, economic, and religious issue. Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what's God's. Now, there's a lot to unpack with that, but that is a political statement. And it's also an economic one and a social one. and a spiritual and religious one. Jesus clearly had things to say about politics. And this is clear as you dive further into scholarship and the Gospels. I will link resources in the description of this video so that people can go check this stuff out. But uh, Marcus Borg's article, Jesus and Politics in Contemporary Scholarship, is good. It's freely accessible. Again, it will be linked in the description. But he lays out a shift in historical Jesus scholarship and argues that many Jesus traditions reflect critique of society and a alternate social vision. Some people have argued that Jesus is a charismatic revolutionary prophet within first century Jewish society, and Luke 4:16 through 30, right, the passage that we were just talking about, is often used to support political social readings, as it well should be. Remember too that the circumstances surrounding the death of Jesus was deeply political and economic. John Pete's dissertation, The Politics of the Crucified, talks about what it means politically that Jesus died violently on the cross by a form of execution used against those who threatened Roman imperial order. So there's a lot of research on this, and this continues into the book of Acts and readings of the apostles. Uh, I also talk about this in my article, arguing that the gospel is liberation from all oppression. I would also encourage people to do deep research on the intertestamental period, the time period between the last book of the Protestant Old Testament and the first book of the Christian New Testament. I took a class, a college class on this time period, and it opened my eyes to just how political the context and environment was around the actions of Jesus and the apostles. That said, I will stop ranting. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe for more content on politics and theology. God bless.